Yo, hello. This is Mr. Anderson, True Crypto 28 from Twitter. Just saying what's up to everyone. Just wanted to drop a very quick video. Let's see if I can stick to that, but I'm going to try to make it short and quick. In reality, is a mixed mash situation going on, right? So I don't have a lot of concrete directional information for you. It's really at an inflection point here where we could level up or level down, which obviously isn't the most ideal for most people who would like to get something a little more rock solid. But I like to be open and honest with people when I don't have the strongest read in the world. So first and foremost, I get that out the way, right? I will say that if you can like and subscribe, that would be helpful ultimately. But I want to say hi to everyone. Hopefully, everyone's being safe, obeying this. Maybe obeying is the wrong word, but following the guidelines to try to stick to yourself for the most part. And serious business out there, obviously. So the more we can stop the spread, the better. Obviously, you don't need me to lecture you on that, but let me just jump in a little bit, right? So Bitcoin did this interesting stuff here, right? So if we just kind of very quick review on a very low time frame, just because it allows us to see more. We really dumped out. I won't review too much of that. We've done that on previous videos. We spoke about this particular area, which began right here. This is on a 1 hour. We could see where it's problematic, but we see that, and I should have that probably extended down, but it's not really meant for 1 hour. It's meant probably 4 hour or higher. Yeah, you can see there was no closes below this level. Right here is where I'm focusing on. So the idea is that we were focusing on that level as, hey, you know what, previous creek, which basically, well, it's a creek, it's a river of supply, right? So it was just an area that was very tough to get over before. You could see rejection, couldn't even get there. Finally, you break on through, come back for a little test a couple times, even if you want to call that one just a test, and then a real beautiful explosion from this, 7,700 range to 10.5-ish. And then eventually start having issues in the world, regardless of the circumstances. The TA still showed you that, hey, you know what, this was problematic right around, for sure, in this area where you could establish, like, okay, lower high, lower low. So now market structure says on a daily scale, we got a problem. We marked this off basically in these videos as well to say, hey, I would be quite bearish if we broke somewhere in this range here, which we did, and we began that fall off. So it was a hard fall. We had a directional bias at a downside. But ultimately, still, I was peeking to see if something could come up that could give me a reason to long. It never came, right? So it never happened. It was actually very nice. You can kind of see from the structure here, a lot of times where you get really caught, and I shouldn't say this, I don't want to make some people feel worse or anything, but where you get really caught sometimes is when you're challenging your initial trend line. So when you go tip to tip like this, so if this guy was being threatened, or you had a stop hunt or hunt in this area up here, that could be a little bit more tricky for longs. Now you could get caught a little bit because maybe you anticipated that it was going to make a run to here, so we get that. But that dump off should have gotten most people out for the most part. So in the reality, in my opinion, there were not many thoughts of longing at all. I didn't take a single long during this time. Personally. Now, I can see some trickiness in here if you get cute, if you're talented enough. Sometimes talent works against you, right? Where you could have gotten burnt in here. I was fortunate enough not to take a long during that timeline, so it didn't happen. And my directional bias was mostly to the downside, but it's neither here or there. Ultimately, we got down. We've talked about this. We talked about the bottom feeling that this had, but understanding the macro environment and the fact that, look, we're not in Kansas anymore. It's a different world. Things have changed. Maybe it's not the bottom, right? Or maybe it needs to be retested. I'll tell you what, if it needs to be retested, I wouldn't want to test it right now. I wouldn't have any faith in this thing holding now. If it's going to be retested, I want it to be retested after putting in some time, right? And then show me a retest, because that's something that would show a little bit more strength. If you remember this guy back here, if you go back in time, right, you came down, right, and then grind it lower. And by the time we got here, we thought, oh my God, there's no way this thing's going to hold. And that's that pillar of strength, right? Because it's just patient people saying, we'll take all your supply. And then eventually it can't help itself but to grind up because there's just no more supply. And then it goes, right? Again, different world here. I won't get into too much to the circumstances of, hey, how good this is for Bitcoin. In a perfect world, the way that Satoshi designed it, everything that's being done should be terrific for Bitcoin. But that doesn't line up to people spending their dollars and taking supply off the market. If they're doing that, then by all means, this thing should go and can go, but it doesn't have to go right now. And also structure, right? We could be looking at this on a one, maybe maybe the structure is happening on a 1 week, a 2 week type of scenario. Uh, what does that mean? Basically, the moves are exasperated, right? So you get up, down, and of course now you get into another situation, which is what is that it's not like it's predetermined. Of course not. So we don't want to make it sound that way, but when things are happening at scale, you start to fluctuate around a lot more, right? So this was like more of a scaling move, things calm down, and then you start to break down, more of a scaling move again, 1 week, 2 week chart type stuff. So what I mean by that is that it's not out of the realm of possibility to see something significant, like a big run that gets any shorts that are remaining. I mean, how many people are really remaining in perps? Most of them got burnt up, but the ones that are there, you could try to crush them up, crush them down, that type of thing. So nothing would surprise me. There's no scenario now where I go, oh yeah, that's really shocking. Nope, I'm very open. Station to station is what I always do anyway. But literally, it absolutely wouldn't shock me at all to see us up here in a couple days or even to this level in a few days. Now, bursting through there, that would be very interesting. But still, although very unlikely, not impossible, right? It's just not something in this environment where I would see anything specifically as impossibility, nor would it shock me to see us back at lows, right? So you lose this level right here, it's a problem. So where we're at now, I could show you some other, I don't remember, forgive me guys, I don't have anything like significantly prepared here, so I don't want to make it seem like I came to this video just ready for you. But all right, this is good. This is futures, right? This is the same chart, untouched. We haven't touched this thing since this date, I believe it was. You guys can go back and look in time where it was September, October, in that range. Let me check price. We're good. Okay. September, October, in this range here. And basically, what happened is we drew this out. We had all this drawn, right? And we look at it in two ways. We look at it log and linear, right? And I have some of the log lines drawn in there on the linear scale. I do prefer linear myself, but I understand why people like log. Log doesn't make as much sense on such a short time frame because futures haven't been haven't been around that long. But I want to respect both because some traders are going to look at it, so I'm going to look at it, right? Well, what happened? Basically, if we summarize, we had this. I'm going to just hide this for a minute. This candle here. Before this all happened, we started to test here. We made a video here, and I said, man, this is getting awfully close to this level right here. This is the candle that represents the largest volume in the history of the futures market. And in my opinion, once it cleared this range, it didn't need to come back, right? And we talked about like this close being dicey, right? This close needed to hold this particular top side. Normally, you would like to hold top side. I'm going to add something here for the first time this chart ever. I'm not going to keep it, but just to show you what I'm talking about. You would at least like to hold the low end of this, in my opinion, just to not have such a dicey situation, which is right there. And it fell under it. And we talked about that on the stream and said, you know what, man, that is a dicey close. Forget the big candle. That is dicey. Well, it reclaimed, but you can do that a lot where you end up in the situation where it's like, look, the macro now, especially on something like a daily, which controls most things, was down, right? We already had set a lower low and a lower high and a lower low again. So it was problematic. So in this situation, this gets faded. The reason I brought that up is that what you could look in that video, what we said is don't get back into this range. Like this is problematic right here because you fought so hard to get out. Things were really looking well. And this thing should have held and tried to push, hold, come back, buy some time. Some type of SOS would have been nice, sign of strength, and then go. It just wasn't in the cards. Life changed. Whether you believe that's the reason or not, doesn't matter. The charts show that things change, and they were bearish from this point, and certainly got more bearish at this point. Very risky. The monthly was ugly, right? So the monthly was just ugly at that point when we closed the month of February. We could talk about that tomorrow. But the idea is this. Once you fell into it, forget it. I mean, this is why you don't want to fall back into it. And then it got nasty, right? You fell all the way through, breaking this level here that I actually thought would hold. But keep in mind, this is future, so this was on a Friday. So this is where you get the disparity of a futures chart closing versus spot. In reality, spot's the one that matters. I prefer to utilize futures because I trust it more. I trust the volume. I trust the players, etc. But it is what it is. The week closes on Sunday, right? It doesn't close on Friday. And these guys close their charts on Friday, and you end up with some weird situations. But you end up getting this reclaim, right? So, okay, you reclaim this level. That was very important. You could see it hold. It's holding all of these as well. Rejection, rejection, rejection on this horizontals here, which is very important. This is where we expanded up higher, right? So this was the 4K explosion. And then we had that upward reaccumulation pattern, which is like a cylinder. Very impressive. And then you're holding those on the test. All these are holds of that test. And then on this last week, intra-week, of course, so far we held the trend line good, but you're also on these last 2 weeks showing a, watch, I'm going to put it to log, in this red line. It's the same one. It's connected perfectly. I drew it perfectly out to the number. And you see that it runs right through that same white line, so I could take it off. Okay, and we're rejecting there. So you're stuck in this pattern here where you have some top side problems and some downside problems on, excuse me, you have some downside support, top side problems as it relates to diagonals, right? And diagonals aren't everything. By the way, we had this diagonal drawn out for everything, for forever, and you can see how well it played out when you broke out. It was obviously a factor, and then even coming back, holding was a factor there. But of course, the horizontals are more important. And the key here is you're at least back into that range. And getting back into this range gets you back into this range. The work on the weekly futures looks a little bit harder to me. It looks a little bit tougher in terms of where you would like to reclaim, right? This thing actually has a hell of a jump to make versus spot. But I'm going to stick with spot for now, right? So what do we coming back to this intro? This is a low time frame 4-hour chart. What do we have here? Basic Wyckoff stuff. I'm only looking at things like accumulation distribution patterns. It's so much easier to look at in hindsight anyway, so I don't have to assume anything, right? Because it gets tricky. Wyckoff looks very similar for an accumulation and a distribution in phase A, B, and C. You could also find that you think you're in C. You realize, oh my God, I'm in A or B, and the pattern is going to be much longer. So there's a lot of things in that nature that get a little bit tricky. You really want to play it after you jump a creek and come back for a backup test. So we can look in the past, though, and we see we had a couple of different scenarios, and where this comes into play is you can see that we are held by exactly this scenario right here. So here was a situation. This would also be a creek. Again, that's just a river of supply, as they would call it. Doesn't have to be too perfect. But you can see that it's legit in that, look, this is exactly where we got caught, right? We were caught finally despite the major distribution, right, that you got right there. And people say, oh, we still need capitulation. I don't know what market those guys have been trading. I mean, that was some capitulation. Now, might we see another? Absolutely, even deeper and darker, but certainly that looks like it was enough to qualify. Will it be? Who knows? But ultimately, that held, to which I would say, thank God, because look, man, down here is scary. There's nothing. I'll play it, right? But even playing that just gets silly. Doesn't mean it can't get caught just under. You can find supports back there. I'm not going to get into that nonsense. Once we get closer to the level, we'll talk about it. But that's a deep, dark, scary, face the Grim Reaper type scenario that I don't want to think about. I'll trade it because I trade, right? But I am a Bitcoin maximalist at heart, right? So I want to see it do well. I would love for this to be the time. Although I would have thought that it was too young, the fact that, look, you get thrown into the game in this situation, maybe it's time to shine, right? Announce yourself to the world. What could be better? I've mentioned this before. Here you are in this crisis, and you start standing out, and that would just mean that enough people with money has decided to buy it, and the supply's not there. Halving's coming up, those type of things. If you started to really decouple, and I mean literally decouple, which it has not done in any shape or form at the moment, from the traditional markets, meaning that you're not reliant. People freak out about this decoupling. You're not reliant on the market doing well, right? So if the market crashes, it's going to crash you as well. So that's what's occurred so far, clearly, right? Look where we went, 10,000 to 3,600, depending on the exchange. But the idea is this: fell down, got caught there, back here in this area. Okay, you're at least working on that. It's always just a game of ranges, right? One range, two ranges, right? Previous range, this range, etc., this range. So we have all these ranges all over the place. And you're trying to either level up into a range and play there, or know that you're at risk of leveling down. So when we get looking at that, basically we see why we have these particular levels matched up. You get into the situation to where, all right, you set up this here, and it fought well, right? So you had your initial bounce. Good job. This all happened very quickly. People were worried about this being distribution. This is exactly what we were talking about, right? A lot of the distribution models will look just like this and then peel out, but no, it was just a retest here. Scooting up, looked good. We have this diagonal that it burst on through. Good job. And now you're holding just very short creek. It wasn't long, right? I wouldn't say that, hey, this is some wonderful creek, but look, a lot of Bitcoin was caught in this area, and there was some accumulated. And thus far, you had a backup right here and here. So a couple backup tests of it. Good job. But here you are. You're finding yourself where? All the way back into the previous creek, and I'll show you where it's at because I know I did that fast. This is exactly where we're at here. You see this level, and we're testing this level, and it's not easy to crack because what happened? This was its own thing, right? We popped up to 14,000-ish, and you started to peel back. What am I looking for? This guy, right? And then finally came up, and this is what you call that creek, right? This is the previous creek, and this is just the upper end of the creek, the one you want to jump. So this is jumping the creek, but in reality, all of this is the creek. So this would be going down all the way into the lower creek, right, to where you're just testing supply. Ideal wouldn't be red since everything I have is red, but it's okay. Why do this? No reason. The point is that you're trying to, in my opinion, get right into this level on something like a 4-hour close would be good, right? So that's, let's see, where are we at here? I'm trying to look back here. Oh, forgive me. So here's our creek. Let me zoom in. What I want to take out in this situation, actually, I'm probably going to switch to a 12-hour, but you see this bar, but that's why I'll switch. But I can use this. It's fine. So I want to get here on a 4-hour close, but it's right, let's just call it that one because I lost this level, and then you get down into this ugliness. Good, there's something going on here, but I still consider this the bear side right there. So I want to jump this level right here on a 4-hour close, and that's why I have this box marked off like that. And you end up in a situation where you're talking about something like 69.50 on MEX in that range. So that's the goal, right? If you're looking to extend. And you could also see that that's exactly where we've gotten caught up, right? So you tried it once, no. Tried it a second time, no. The problem is that you also find yourself in a situation to where you hopped into this little area here. That's fine and good. That gets you into the fight. You see how that worked out here and here. But at the same time, you also want to hold this area because if you do not, there's not a lot going on. We have a couple levels here like, yes, this could hold. Yes, that could hold. But the reality, you end up in a situation where you may back up all the way back into this area again, and you end up playing ranges, which might be absolutely necessary. But that's what I'm focused on at the moment, and that's why I don't have a clear view. If I get into, I could show you some ugly charts here very quickly. Again, this is not pretty by any stretch of the imagination, so forgive me. This one's going to look nuts, and it's meant to look nuts by design, right? So here we go. Why do we have all this here? Well, we start off, we can go pretty basic from our low, run it through. And we see it, we had lost this area during the weekend, right? And it got a little itchy. I remember selling some spot here, right? It's like, oh man, the risk tolerance is a little shaky. The weekly had done some things that were pretty good, but then ultimately you get that little pop-up, good job, reclaims that area. Well, right now we're in a fight for it. I was looking at this area also earlier. We're on the edge. To me, it does look like it's getting tired, right? So if I go back to a chart like this, I would say it's getting very tired. It's getting sketchy, but I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt that maybe, and it's a maybe, I don't know, right? Maybe this guy he's ready and, momentum's done, and that's okay. That's certainly a possibility. But maybe you try to curve this guy up right here and give it one more go and try to get back into, this was a plan that we had looked at earlier, into this area over here, or maybe even retest this top side, maybe this diagonal, etc. Those are all possibilities of something that could play out that way. So I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. One of the reasons why is this daily, right? So let me just kind of clear some of this off for a moment and get into a moving average. And this is something I want to watch. Nope, I don't want to delete it. I just want to bring on moving averages. I don't need them all, but that's okay. I keep hitting the wrong button. Forgive me. Okay. Okay. So yesterday we reclaimed on a daily basis for the first time since all this occurred, really for the first time since my goodness, yeah, March 7th, right? Reclaim the 21 day. Okay, well, 21 day, normally when you reclaim the 21 day, and I shouldn't say normally, more often than not, you'll claim this guy and make a run. Give me the arrow. You'll make a run. Sure, it's coming in black so you can barely see it, but you'll make a run to this 55 somewhere at least. But look, nothing is binary in trading, right? So you're in a situation to where it doesn't have to happen that way at all. You're also dealing with what? The dailies 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days. This was the 6th day of an inside candle, and then we creeped out. So is it going to be a swing failure of some sort? We'll see. I mean, you had a little creep out, but again, you have to give it another 2.5 hours here just to see how this daily closes. Also, does it get back to 21? So the point of me bringing this up is that you did claim this 21. I'm just stealing this for a second to see that red line. You may not be able to see it, but it runs right about there. So you end up in a situation to where your 20 SMA is right about here where this green line is. Your 21 is right about there, which I'll give it a horizontal like this. Look, the easier play is at least reclaim it for a little and stay bullish, or at least lose this level on close and lose them both. In which case, I'd say, all right, I'm leaning bearish for sure. So let me just explain that again so you guys understand. If I lose this level on close, about 65.20, or just look at your chart and look at the 20 simple moving average on the daily, then I would say, hey, man, there's nothing positive about giving back the 20 and the 21 immediately after getting it. And I'm going to be looking mostly for shorts in that situation. And again, I could be wrong. Tomorrow could leap back up and I could change my plan, and that's very normal, and that's what any trader should be doing. Or close above this area, which seems to be roughly at, this is BitMEX at about 67.03 at the moment. That could change for you. That would be the 21 exponential, okay? So I'm hoping it doesn't close in between, because then that just makes this neutral issue more neutral, right? I don't want that. Don't close between the 20 and the 21. Throw me a bone here. Close above 1 or below 1. The stochastic, shows momentum here on the daily, has been the keeper, right? So we talked about this a lot. There was a few times where this thing looked slippery, but what I've been telling my people is like, look, man, I got to lean towards the daily and understanding that this has been fighting the good fight, and despite what we see on the lower time frames, they're going to defer to this higher time frame. The fact that this guy's been showing that the momentum has been climbing has been good, but it's getting tired, right? H12 also tired. The 12-hour is very tired looking, but it's also very bunched up, right? So when I see this, when I see this, I see a situation where I say, all right, yeah, tired, but it's bunched up, right? So I can't write it off. None of this is great, but it is holding at the moment. That's why I say down here, not good on the close. Up here, a little bit better. So again, I'm waiting to see this close and kind of going from there. And that's really it for now. I'm going to go deeper because I do want to talk about the monthly. I want to talk about the 3-month. I want to talk about some other scenarios. But we'll do that tomorrow. I have some more charts, but I said I was going to keep this particular video shorter. But that's the main focus at the moment. Again, if you could like and subscribe, you're doing me a favor from that standpoint. Hopefully everyone's well. Stay safe above all else. If you have questions, feel free to shoot me them into my direct messaging on Twitter. And I'm out for now. Take care.